Okay. Didn't think I was going to make it. The little circle kept going and going and going. So I refreshed it, and hopefully I'm here. So y'all, please, if you're here, let me know that I'm here. Because the internet seems to be acting wonky again. At least, or maybe YouTube today. I don't know. It's been fine this morning until I tried to just go live. Yay! We are here. I wasn't sure. I could see me, but I could see me before that. Anyway, hey y'all, how you doing? I'm here. You're here. We're here. Oh my goodness. I wanted to start off by actually 3 people that I wanted to ask for prayer for or jumping in the chat. I wanted to start off by talking about, the prayer request. Amy, our blessed family, go check out her channel. Her husband, I know he's back at work right now, Amy. I think you said he's back at work, but he did have the accident that she's talked about on videos, where he had cut off the end of his finger at work, and he had to have surgery, and he had to have, I know that's maybe graphic, but I'm not trying not to be. But anyways, keep them in your prayers because of that. And also Joanne, I made notes this time. The last thing she left me, which for some reason, the comment, even though I had responded, went to hidden, but I unhid it today. Because I wanted to go back and see what exactly you said. But her first iron infusion was last week, and she's going back this week to get tested, her hemoglobin tested, because they don't know why she's losing blood. But she can tell you more about that maybe in the chat if she wants to. And the only reason I'm saying that publicly is because she put it in comments publicly. Otherwise, I wouldn't do that. And then Donna's friend, I'm not going to say his name. You're waiting for the results? Okay. See, I did make myself notes this time. But, and I also have my little book. But her friend, it's not a good report. He may never get to go home, but keep him in your prayers. And also, Amy has found out she has Hashimoto's, and her daughter has gluten sensitivities, or she's gluten sensitive or allergic to gluten. I don't know which one. I don't remember. I'm sorry, but I know that neither one of them can have gluten, and they're finding all kinds of awesome things that they can do and not have gluten. She's been doing her research. It looks like from her videos, from her grocery hauls, and from things I think there was 1 or 2 meals she's cooked, but one of them looked really good. It didn't look like it was any kind of gluten-free thing at all. But I wanted to bring those up, and also I do not know the real name, but a subscriber who is very, very sweet, Oklahoma boy. He has had some bad news. It's not his grandmother, but she was like a grandmother to him. She's found out she has cancer, and they can't do anything about it. So keep him and the family in your prayers because of that, and also my daughter Selena. So, and if anybody else has anything else they want to pray for, you can put it on the in the chat or in a comment on any video. And as long as YouTube tells me that I have a video, I'll know, because sometimes it's not even in the hidden place. It comes up a lot later. The best way to let me know for sure is to send me an email. And my email is in all of the descriptions of any videos that I have put up in the last at least 6 months. And it's also on my About page. It's been on my About page forever. So I think that's all. I do have Debbie's daughter and boyfriend, but I don't know if I haven't heard anything back about that, and I don't know about that. But so just keep them in your prayers too. Who's coming in the house? What you doing?
Not scheduled until later today. I just had to look at my schedule wrong time and didn't know it.
What time do you have to go in?
3.
So what time do you want to do supper? Same? Okay. He's not scheduled till 3. He was supposed to be scheduled at 2. So he went to work an hour early. That's Noah. Um, that's strange. They changed his schedule. They don't usually do that. Anyways, thank you, Joanne. But I think that is all of the prayer, all the like any kind of uh now that he come in, I totally forgot what I was thinking or what I was saying. But any updates that I have, I think I've given all of them to y'all. I tried to do notes this time. I tried to do better with it, and I know I don't have to do that, but I want to. And also for Donna, I did say about her friend, but also for her because of health issues, and we all need that prayer for lots of things. But whenever we know someone has issues, we need to have a little extra prayer for them. So let's go over First Samuel a little bit. I'm not going to go all the way back to the first of First Samuel because that's a while back. But we know that Saul is messing up. That's how far we've gotten. We know that now Saul has been the kingship. I don't know. That's not the right word. But he is now no longer king in God's eyes. This is the way I see it. That's the way the way that it sounds to me. That's what it sounds like. The people still see him as king, I guess, because they're still following him, but God does not. And now David has been, and Samuel knows this too. Did I say Samuel a while ago? I meant Saul. Did I say the wrong name? If I did, I'm sorry. But Saul is not king anymore in God's eyes. Samuel has anointed David. David is just a simple shepherd. He's just someone, he's the youngest of 8 sons. I don't know, they haven't said much about his family yet, except he is the youngest of 8 sons. And he was not even thought of whenever his daddy didn't bring him to the supper that Samuel had invited him to. And so whenever Samuel was supposed to be anointing the next king, all these boys, or men, young men, David's father, Jesse, brought them through, and they said, God said, no, this is not the one. This is not the one. This is not the one. And then finally Samuel asked Jesse, do you have another son? Do you have another child? Is he out there somewhere? What's up with this? Kind of thing. And he said, yes, he's in the field. He's with my sheep. So he said, bring him in. And they didn't start the supper until David was brought and David was anointed. And now we've gotten up to, my phone's going crazy. We've gotten up to the point where that Saul was having distressing spirits he was distressed. He was depressed. He was not in a good mood. It was not good. And so Saul's people, his servant, brought in David because David could play musical instruments very beautifully, and he thought that might soothe Saul. So now that Saul is being soothed by David, then he has asked Jesse to have him come to his court, to the king's court. And that's how far we've gotten, that David has earned favor. So now we're going on to chapter 17. But something in chapter 17, whenever I was reading it, which I will bring it up because it's in my notes, it was like, wow, Saul, you are really messed up. But we'll get there. So I'm going to start reading. Now the Philistines gathered their armies together to battle, and were gathered at Soka. I think that's how you say it, which belongs to Judah. They encamped between Soka and Azekah in Eph-Damim. I don't know these words very well. Hopefully I'm getting them right. And Saul and the men of Israel were gathered together, and they encamped in the valley of Elah, and drew up in battle array against the Philistines. So we know that the Philistines and the Israelites, they're fighting all the time. It's just always fighting. The Philistines stood on the mountain on one side, and Israel stood on the mountain on the other side, with a valley between them. And it made me think about You know, in Psalm 23, you know, the valley of death, that's what it made me think about. I don't know why, but that valley is where that they would meet. And it's the valley of death. It's where the war, you know, it's where it happens a lot. That's the way that wars happen a lot. But it just made me think about that. It's not in this. It's just something I thought about. And the champion went out from the camp of the Philistines, named Goliath from Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. So I looked up how much 6 cubits was. 6 cubits and a span, and that's about 9.75 feet or 9 feet 9 inches. Now, Noah is 6'4". Noah, do you mind being on the live stream for just a minute just to show a representation? If you don't want to, you do not have to. Do you mind being on the live stream for a minute for a representation? Okay. So, come stand over here. Let's get... Oh, you may not be able to be seen. Hold on. All right. Noah is 6'4". I'm 5'4", 5'3", something on a good day. So, if Goliath was 9'9", he would have not even fit in my house because it's what, 8 feet? 7 feet? I don't know. But if this man was standing beside me, he's tall. I have to look up to him. Just think if he was 9'9", with them shoulders. You can go back now if you want to, unless you want to stay.
No, I got stuff.
Oh, he's got stuff he's got to do. Anyway, let me fix my camera back because you're way up there. But yeah, Noah is 6'4", and that's what I thought about. I'm like, wow, Noah is that much taller than me already, and it doesn't. I mean, David was, a normal average size, I think. Goliath was a giant. He was huge. I mean, if somebody is Noah's height, they're super tall to me. You know what I'm saying? So where was I at again? I just that it's like, wow. You know what I'm saying? So where was I at? Okay. He had a bronze helmet on his head, and he was armed with a coat of mail, and the weight of the coat was 5,000 shekels of bronze. So I looked up 5,000 shekels because I was like, how heavy is that? That is 121.875 pounds. That's 121 pounds. I can't pick up 120. Well, I maybe could, but I don't want to pick up 121 pounds. That was just his coat, the weight of the coat of mail. This dude is carrying some weight. And he had bronze armor on his legs and bronze javelin between his shoulders. We also don't know how heavy these things are because it doesn't say. Now, the staff of his spear was like a weaver's beam, and his iron spearhead weighed 600 shekels. So I looked that up. That's 15.8 pounds. The spearhead, just the spearhead, was over 15 pounds. That's bigger. That's heavier than a sack of potatoes. A normal 10-pound, that's what the average you get. And a shield bearer went before him. So that's a lot of weight that this man is carrying on his body and in his hand, and then he's got a dude in front of him with a shield. Why does he need a shield bearer? He's 9'9" with all this stuff. Why does he need that? Why? Because he is the champion. He's the one that beats everybody. He's the one who is the big bad one, the one that they look to for all of their protection. That's the way it sounds to me. So he has all this armor on. I mean, his whole body is covered in heavy armor. And something else I looked up about bronze, because I was like, well, I don't know much about bronze. Why would he have bronze armor? Why does that matter? And I looked it up, and it says bronze armor is stronger than others. Well, this is what I wrote down. This is not what it said. But it says when it is struck, it will most likely just bend. It doesn't pierce it. Now, that doesn't mean it can't pierce it. That doesn't mean that certain weapons can't go through it. But bronze at this time was one of the strongest things. All right, Donna, sorry to interrupt prayer. Wait a minute. Sorry to interrupt. Request prayer for my friend B, who has a thing going around, and so does her son. She has comorbid conditions as well, autoimmune. Okay, I'm going to write that down right now, but I'm going to keep talking because I can write and talk. She just texted you. Okay, well, that's a good time. There's no wrong time to ask for prayer if we're doing this. I don't care if you interrupt me. It doesn't bother me one bit. And I don't think it'll bother anybody else either. But anyway, let's see. Her and her son. Okay. Starts with B. I want to write that down. So that I know. I mean, God knows, but still. So I don't know. Anyway, so Goliath was this big, strong guy who had tons of armor. Well, not literally tons, but lots of armor. He was toting a heavy weapon, and he was the one that everybody looked to. And we know now that bronze is a very strong metal that was hard to pierce. It was hard to get, hard to get through. And I think that we needed to know these things because God had a reason for us to know these things about Goliath, because it didn't have to say any of this. So then it says, and also he had a shield bearer. He had some dude who was a lot smaller than him, most likely, walking in front of him with a shield. He was, shielding him. Then he stood and cried out to the armies of Israel and said to them, "Why have you come out to line up for battle? Am I not a Philistine, and you the servants of Saul? Choose a man for yourselves and let him come down to me. If he is able to fight with me and kill me, then we will be your servants. But if I prevail against him and kill him, then you shall be our servants and serve us." So he's out there boasting. He's saying, "I'm better than y'all. You come over here and you beat me, then okay, we'll be your servants. But if I win, you're our servants." Well, he's cocky. He's the big man on campus. He's the one that thinks he can do whatever he wants because he's the biggest one there. And he thinks he's going to win no matter what. That's just the impression I get from this guy. That he is the one that thinks he can beat anybody. And verse 10, and the Philistine said, "I defy the armies of Israel this day. Give me a man that we may fight together." When Saul and all Israel heard these words of the Philistine, they were dismayed and greatly afraid. Now, why was Saul, the king, who's supposed to be the big man on campus, why was he scared? He was supposed to have God on his side. He was supposed to be relying on God. He was supposed to have faith in God, but instead, he and all of his people are scared because they were following Saul and not God, because Saul was following Saul and not God. That's my opinion. That's my thought. Because I know there's been a lot of situations where I've had fear, but I wasn't scared of the situation, and anxiety steps in and things like that. But inevitably, I always relied on God. Saul's not doing that. That's just not how he's doing things. At least that's the way it seems to me. He hasn't been for a while. After 2 years, he started messing up. Now, David was the son of that Ephrathite of Bethlehem, Judah, whose name was Jesse, and who had 8 sons. And the man was old and advanced in years in the days of Saul. The 3 oldest sons of Jesse had gone to follow Saul in battle. The names of his 3 sons who went to battle were Eliab, the firstborn, next to him Abinadab, and the third Shammah. David was the youngest, and the 3 oldest followed Saul. But David occasionally went and returned from Saul to feed his father's sheep at Bethlehem. So we've got to remember, David is at court. He's with the king, playing his harp, soothing the king. But sometimes he goes back home and he helps his daddy because he's not always needed with the king. So sometimes he goes back and he helps his father with his sheep, doing his normal duties. He is in the kingdom when he's needed. That's it. Rest of the time he's at home or in the field. And the Philistines drew near and presented himself. Philistine drew near him, and let me start that verse 16 again. Why do I keep saying chapter? And the Philistine drew near and presented himself 40 days, morning and evening. So Goliath is coming out for 40 days. What is up with 40? It's like 40 days and 40 nights with the flood. And this is 40, I wonder sometimes. 17, then Jesse said to his son David, take now for your brothers an ephah of this dried grain and these 10 loaves, and run to your brothers at the camp, and carry these 10 cheeses to the captain of their 1,000, and see how your brothers fare, and bring back news of them. Now, he's sending his son to bring some provision to his other sons and to the other warriors. I can't think of the word. Soldiers. One's fighting the battle or going to fight the battle, or honestly, I think Jesse is really just trying to find out how his boys are. That's my opinion. Yeah, he wants to help. He wants to do things. He's a good man, but I think he really wants to know how his sons are, because I would want to know how my son was. I would want to help and send whatever I could, but I would still want to know how my son is. Is he okay? Is he okay? Now Saul and they and all the men of Israel were in the valley of Elah, fighting with the Philistines. So David rose early in the morning, left the sheep with the keeper, and took the things and went as Jesse had commanded him. And he came to the camp as the army was going out to the fight and shouting for the battle. For Israel and the Philistines had drawn up in a battle array, army against army. And David left his supplies in the hands of the supply keeper, ran to the army, and came and greeted his brothers. Then as he talked with them, there was the champion, the Philistine of Gath, Goliath by name, coming up from the armies of the Philistines, and he spoke according to the same words. So David heard them. So David happened to be there when Goliath was out making his speech, making his daily speech. Or actually, he was making it twice a day, morning and evening. And all the men of Israel, when they saw the man, fled from him and were dreadfully afraid. So all these people are still scared. And I'm pretty sure if this big dude came at me twice a day for 40 days, I'd have some fear. I'm not saying I wouldn't. That's a human emotion. We're going to have fear. But my thing is, why wasn't the king doing something? Why was he just sitting back and fighting the little battles, but not getting rid of this big problem? Why was he just playing, in the background and not fighting this giant? Because if we don't attack our giants, we're never going to get through. We're never going to get to the place where there's no Philistines, where there's no, big problems. And I'm not saying we can fight every battle, and that we don't. I'm not saying we don't need to fight the small battles. We do need to fight the small battles, but we don't just need to continue to stay in the same thing and expect to get out. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. We don't need to try to do the same thing over and over and never move forward, because they weren't moving forward. So the men of Israel said, have you seen this man who has come up? Surely he has come up to defy Israel. And it shall be that the man who kills him, the king will enrich with great riches, will give him his daughter, and give his father's house exemption from taxes in Israel. So that is a great incentive. You're going to have great wealth. The king's going to give you that. You're going to have a wife. The king's going to give you that. One of his children, one of his princesses, his daughters. And your father, his whole household will not have any taxes. I would love to not have taxes. I mean, we would all love that. We would love to be able to do whatever we wanted and not have to pay taxes. I'm pretty sure that we would want to be exempt from that. Most people would, because that's a great chunk of money out of everybody's paycheck, out of every time you go to the store. It's a big amount. So it's a great incentive for somebody to go up and risk themselves for Israel. And this is all that Saul has done so far. That's what it sounds like to me. Let me see if I have any. Okay, no, don't have any notes to that yet. Then David spoke to the men who stood by him, saying, "What shall be done for a man who kills the Philistines and takes away the reproach from Israel? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of a living God and the people of the living God?" And the people answered him in this manner, saying, "So shall it be done for the man who kills him." Now Eliab, his oldest brother, heard when he spoke to the men, and Eliab's anger was aroused against David, and he said, "Why did you come down here? And with whom have you left those few sheep in the wilderness? I know your pride and the insolence of your heart, for you have come down to see the battle." So he's telling him, what are you here for? Why aren't you there? He had no respect for David. That's just the way it sounds. He had no respect for his little brother. He was looking at him like a little worm, like a little nothing. Like, what are you doing here? Little pipsqueak, what are you doing? Why are you here? You just want to see what's going on. You just want to see that battle. You just want to see the grossness and the gore and all that. That's what he's telling him. You're here because you have pride, because you think you're better than others, you know? That's the way it sounds to me. Like, he has no respect for David. And David wasn't there for that. He was there to actually feed him. He was there to find out how he was so he could go back and tell his father. He was following his father's orders, doing exactly what he said. And David said, "What have I done now? Is there not a cause?" Then he turned from him toward another and said the same thing. And these people answered him as the first ones did. Now when the words which David spoke were heard, they reported them to Saul, and he sent for him. Then David said to Saul, "Let no man's heart fail because of him. Your servant will go and fight with this Philistine." So David's saying, "I'll go fight him. Y'all don't need to be worried. I'll go do it." Because, see, David had been in a field. We're going to learn what he's been doing. He's been in a field with sheep. And there are a lot of different creatures that want to come and eat the sheep. They're tasty. They're yummy little morsels. And these big animals will come in, and the shepherds have to have skills to fight them. And let me be quiet and read before I won't be quiet, but let me stop there and read before I get ahead of myself. Because this one is really, I just really like this study today. I don't know. I like all of them. I always say that, but I just love the Bible. And Saul said to David, "You are not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for you are youth, and he a man of war from his youth." So he's saying, he's been fighting since he was your age. You can't do this. Saul had doubts. Saul is not remembering what David has already done for him. I've noticed that. Despite some thinking it is a toy, a slingshot is a vicious weapon and can be. Yes, it is. And Saul said to David, wait a minute, I already read that. But David said to Saul, "Your servant used to keep his father's sheep. And when a lion or a bear came and took a lamb out of the flock, I went out after it and struck it and delivered the lamb from its mouth. And when it arose against me, I caught it by its beard and I struck it and killed it. Your servant has killed both lion and bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, seeing he has defied the armies of the living God." So David sees who this army belongs to. And if you think about it, a bear is big, tall. I'm sure they can stand. I don't know the tallest, but they're big. They're strong. They have large claws and teeth. And then you think about a lion. They're large claws that retract, so they can just like Daisy. She doesn't know how to use her claws. But her little claws hurt. They can rip something apart. Just think about a lion. And this boy is going against these animals. He has battle, what am I trying to say? Experience. He has war experience because he's done these things. Okay, so where am I at? Moreover, David said, the Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear, he will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine. So he's saying, I've got God on my side. Saul didn't remember that. Saul didn't remember that he had God on his side, which actually he didn't anymore. I mean, the Israelite people did, but Saul didn't. And he should have never forgotten God, that's what I think. And Saul said to David, go and the Lord be with you. So Saul clothed David with his armor and he put a bronze helmet on his head. So he's got a bronze helmet, the same material that Goliath has. And he put a bronze helmet on his head and also clothed him with a coat of mail. David fastened his sword to his armor and tried to walk, for he had not tested them. And David said to Saul, I cannot walk with these, for I have not tested them. So David took them off. So he had the same armor. He could have went, but he's like, no, I can't fight in this. This is not normal. This is not what I wear. This is not my shepherd's clothes. This is too heavy. This is too much. This is not something that I am experienced in. I'm taking it off. So he did. Then he took his staff in his hand, a shepherd's staff, I'm sure, and he chose for himself 5 smooth stones from the brook, and he put them in his shepherd's bag in a pouch which he had, and his sling was in his hand, and he drew near to the Philistines. So I should have brought my slingshot out, because I do have a slingshot. The slingshot that we think about is the one that has the like little thing like that, and it's got a handle, and it's got the rubber band thing, and it's got a place for you to pull back. You pull back and shoot your rocks or whatever. This is not the kind of sling he had. The slingshot he had was most likely like a piece of cloth that you twist around and then throw. The rock flies out. I don't know how to do it. But if you twist it around, you get the momentum and it flies out. So let's see. Where am I at? Okay. So the Philistine came and began. Wait a minute. Is that where I was at? Yes. And he drew near to the Philistine. So the Philistine came and began drawing near to David, and the man who bore the shield went before him. So Goliath has still got his shield bearer. And when the Philistine looked about and saw David, he disdained him, for he was only a youth, ruddy and good looking. So the Philistine said to David, am I a dog that you come to me with sticks? He had a staff, it looks like a stick. And the Philistine cursed David by his gods, which we know are garbage gods. They're no good. And wait a minute. By his gods, the Philistine, wait a minute, where was I at? And the Philistine said to David, come to me, and I will give your flesh to the birds of the air and the beasts of the field. Then David said to the Philistine, you come to me with your sword, with a spear, and with a javelin. But I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hand, and I will strike you and take your head from you. And this day I will give the carcasses of the camp of the Philistines to the birds of the air and the wild beasts of the earth, that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel. Then all this assembly shall know that the Lord does not save with sword and spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hands. So he's saying, I'm not scared of you. You don't scare me. So it was when the Philistine arose and came and drew near to meet David, that David hurried and ran toward the army to meet the Philistine. Then David put his hand in his bag and took out a stone, and he slung it and struck the Philistine on his forehead, which, from what I understand, there's usually like on some of the helmets, I should have, actually, do I have, I don't, Whoops, something just went into no. Oh, this is the wrong book. I have these little books that have the different types. This is just about the Holy Land. This is not the types of things. Let me see if I can find one that has a picture of the helmets. All right, I'm gonna look in this and see if I can find. This is maybe it'll show. Papers are falling. What is happening? Okay, so I don't know how well this is going to show because it's really not that great. This is a boy with a slingshot. You can't really see it that well, but it's not like the kind we have, like we think of. I was trying to see if. Okay, there's one. This is the helmet from Assyria in the example of contemporary armor. This is like the way it would be. Okay, so some helmets, it may not do very well, but it looks like a Hershey's Kiss. That sounds terrible, but it is. But some had like things that come down, but this didn't. It's just a helmet that goes on top of your head. So he struck him in the forehead. I may have to keep this book out. This is a Zondervan Handbook of the Bible. That's what that is, just in case y'all are interested. I really like these kinds of books because you can get visuals. Actually, I could have got, never mind. I'm going to be quiet and do the thing. Where was I at? So, all right. He struck him in the forehead so that the stone sank into his forehead and he fell on the face of the earth. It did not say he killed him. Okay. You fixing to leave again? Love you too. Will you look in your daddy's boot and see what fell in it? I think it was a paper. It was. It was scriptures. Thank you. All right, well, I'll see you at your lunchtime. Okay, where am I at? So it didn't say he killed him. And I have heard, he's locking me in, y'all. He always locks me in. He's like, protect mama, lock the door. What happened? What I was taught in Sunday school is not what happened. But then again, you don't tell kids about chopping the head off heads and carry. That's what I was fixing to say. Donna, you got ahead of me because I was busy talking to Noah. But anyway, I was going to say, when I was in Sunday school, I was taught that a stone killed him. When even in church, I was taught, like, when different preachers would preach that the stone killed him. Not this part. And this is years ago when I first read this. I was like, wait a minute. Anyway, David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and a stone. He prevailed over him and struck the Philistine and killed him. Wait a minute, where was I at? But there was no sword in the hand of David. Therefore David ran and stood over the Philistine, took his sword and drew it out of its sheath and killed him and cut off his head with it. So he took his own sword. He took Goliath's sword, which, if you think about it, if everything else was super heavy, I wonder how heavy a sword for a 9'9" man would be. This sword, swords, from what I understand, are made for the stature of the person if they are going to be correct. There's no one size fits all for that type of thing. You have to have it made specifically for you. Just like if you have a retainer, you have to have it made specifically for me. My retainer won't fit other people. You know what I'm saying? It's that kind of thing. I know that's a simplistic thing. It's weird. It's not, you know. But they had to have it made specifically for them. So David picked up that sword and he chopped his head off. And when the Philistines saw that their champion was dead, they fled. They ran away. Even though for 40 days this champion twice a day had come out and said, if you beat me, we will serve you. They're not standing behind him anymore. They're not standing behind Goliath because Goliath is dead. It's like all of the air was let out of their balloon all at once. Their hot air balloon just fell to the ground. They're like, what? And they ran. They ran away. Now the men of Israel and Judah arose and shouted and pursued the Philistines as far as the entrance of the valley and to the gates of Ekron. And the wounded of the Philistines fell along the road of Sharaim, even as far as Gath and Ekron. Then the children of Israel returned from chasing the Philistines, and they plundered their tents. And David took the head of the Philistine and brought it to Jerusalem, but he put his armor in his tent. When Saul saw David going out against the Philistine, he said to Abner, the commander of the army, Abner, whose son is this youth? He should know whose son this is. He's the one that was playing the harp for him to make him not so melancholy, not so distressed. He should know who this boy is. Wouldn't you think? I would think. But you know, Saul's messed up. And Abner said, as your soul lives, O king, I do not know. His right-hand man didn't even know. At least that's what I think he is. I don't know. So the king said, inquire whose son this young man is. Then as David returned from the slaughter of the Philistine, Abner took him and brought him before Saul with the head of the Philistine in his hand. And Saul said to him, whose son are you, young man? So David answered, I am the son of your servant Jesse the Bethlehemite. So that's all of chapter 17. But I had wrote, well, I didn't. I am going to read it. I wasn't going to read my note, but I did write more of my thoughts down. I had wrote about verse 51. The stone did not kill him. The sword did. The stone was a big part of the battle, but it did not win the war. And then I wrote a note. This is just what come to my mind. We can listen to Christian teachers all of the time and learn, but we have to take our sword, which is the Bible, out and study for ourselves to win the war against evil. I don't know why that thought came to my head, but whenever it did, I wrote it down. Because if we don't take this out, I mean, you don't have to have one as big as mine unless your eyeballs are not as good as they used to be. This is a big Bible. This is a big word, Bible. It's big letters. But you have to take it out for yourself. Like, I remember when I did not study the Bible for myself, when I just went to church because I thought that's what you were supposed to do, I was there faithfully every single church service, every single revival, every single singing. I was there. But all through the week, anytime I was not at church, I was not reading my Bible. It was a Sunday and Wednesday Bible. I didn't touch it otherwise. And I'm not saying life didn't get better for me. My ear's ringing. I'm not saying my life didn't get better for me during the time whenever I was going to church and everything, but my battles were not being fought. So I was still warring constantly with these things that kept bombarding me. And honestly, I had a lot more problems. Your strength is in his word, and without studying his word, you won't have the strength you should have. Right. So when I started actually studying the Bible for myself, I started seeing where Sunday school lessons were wrong when I was little, where these little books they're cute, they're good for kids, it's all fine and good, but you got to get out of the milk and into the meat. You've got to get out of that place where you're just being nourished with milk. You got to get into the meat. You got to get into the depth of the Bible to learn for yourself. And you've got to pray and ask God to show you what he wants you to see through these, through the Bible. So, that I guess that's probably why that came, to my mind whenever I was reading this. Whenever I was looking at verse 51, I keep saying chapter and it's wrong. But and what other thing gets me is Saul didn't even know who David was. He should have known. But I wonder, did God keep David's true identity, or David, like, if he let Saul forget who he was just so he would he wouldn't go after him, maybe. I don't know. But we're going to find out in chapter 18, which is short, and I don't have a lot of time left, but we're going to do it anyway because we said we were. I'm going to go on to chapter 18. Now, when he had finished speaking to Saul, the soul of Jonathan was knit to the soul of David, and Jonathan loved him as his own soul. So Jonathan is Saul's son. I don't know the difference in their ages. I don't know if they were the same age. I don't know if Jonathan was older. I don't know. Saul took him that day and would not let him go home to his father's house anymore. Before, he could go back and forth. Now he's got to stay with him all the time. Jonathan and David made a covenant because he loved him as his own soul. And Jonathan took off the robe that was on him and gave it to David with his armor, even to his sword and his bow and his belt. So David went out wherever Saul sent him and behaved wisely. And Saul set him over the men of war, and he was accepted in the sight of all the people and also in the sight of Saul's servants. Now it had happened as they were coming home, when David was returning from the slaughter of the Philistine, that the women had come out of all the cities of Israel singing and dancing to meet King Saul with tambourines, with joy, and with musical instruments. So we're going to find out that even though David has just beat the biggest enemy they had, Saul's going to mess up again. So the women sang as they danced and said, Saul has slain his thousands and David his 10,000s. Then Saul was very angry, and the saying displeased him, and he said, They have ascribed to David 10,000s, and to me they have ascribed only thousands. Now what more can we have but this? Now what more can he have but the kingdom? He's already got the kingdom. Saul just doesn't know it. God's already given him the kingdom, but Saul is blind to it. He's blind to everything. So, and he's jealous. He's just jealous. And it happened on the next day that the distressing spirit from God came upon Saul, and he prophesied inside the house. So David played music with his hand as at other times, but there was a spear in Saul's hand, and Saul cast the spear, for he said, I will pin David to the wall. But David escaped his presence twice. So he's trying to kill David. He's messing up. I don't know, but some part of me thinks that maybe if Saul would have repented, God might have forgave him, which I don't know because David had already been anointed, but I don't know. Now, I mean, he still could have been he could have been forgiven for what he had done and everything, but I don't think he would have stayed king anyway. He was too power hungry. He was too self-involved. Now Saul was afraid of David because the Lord was with him, but he departed from Saul. Therefore Saul removed him from his presence and made him captain over 1,000, and he went out and came in before the people. So he did exactly what the women were singing about. He put him over 1,000 men, which the women were talking about slaying people, but still, if he's over 1,000, he's going to end up slaying 1,000. You know what I'm saying? It's that kind of thing. And David behaved wisely in all his ways, and the Lord was with him. Therefore, when Saul saw that he behaved very wisely, he was afraid of him. But all Israel and Judah loved David because he went out and came in before them. So he is going around and doing things in a good way. He's a decent person. David is doing things like he should be. And his character, he's got a good character. He's wise. He's not making mistakes. He's not letting his emotions run him. And the people are seeing this. Verse 17, then Saul said to David, Here is my older daughter, Merab. I will give her to you as a wife. Only be valiant for me and fight the Lord's battles. For Saul thought, let my hand not be against him, but let the hand of the Philistines be against him. So he's saying, don't make it look like I killed him. Let him go out to the battle. This happened later too, kind of, which I'm sure we'll get to. But let's remember this. I may not remember it by then, but let's just remember that Saul did something that David will later do in a similar way, but not exactly. He's going to send somebody out. But anyway, also part of the deal was you get riches and you get a wife. You get one of my daughters. Well, now there's a clause. There's a something there. There's a, oh, you've got to do this before you can marry my girl. That kind of thing. So David said to Saul, who am I and what is my life or my father's family in Israel, that I should be son-in-law to the king? So he said, why should I be a son-in-law to the king? I'm not that important. I'm not a prince. I'm not, that high up in the ranks. Why should I marry your child? Why should I marry your daughter? But it happened at the time when Merab, Saul's daughter, should have been given to David, that she was given to Adriel, I don't know how to say it, the Maholathite, as a wife. So David didn't even marry her. Now Michal, Saul's daughter, loved David, and they told Saul, and the thing pleased him. So Saul said, I will give her to him, that she may be a snare to him, and that the hand of the Philistines may be against him. So he's saying, oh, they love each other. I'll just let my daughter be the one that is distracting him, so he'll go get killed. That's the way it sounds to me. I don't know about y'all, but that's the way it sounds. Where was I at? Therefore Saul said to David a second time, you shall be my son-in-law today. And Saul commanded his servants, communicate with David secretly and say, look, the king has delight in you, and all his servants love you. Now, therefore, become the king's son-in-law. So he's being conniving, y'all. Saul is so bad. So Saul's servants spoke those words in the hearing of David, and David said, does it seem to you a light thing to be a king's son-in-law, seeing I am a poor and lightly esteemed man? And the servants of Saul told him, saying, in this manner David spoke. Then Saul said, thus you shall say to David, the king does not desire any dowry, but 100 foreskins of the Philistines to take vengeance on the king's enemies. So Saul is still trying to send him out to the Philistines to get him murdered. He's still, that's his only thing he sees. That is what he is wanting to do, is get him out there so that they can kill him. Even though David has just killed the champion of the Philistines, he still thinks the Philistines can kill David. And then that's what's going to happen. So when his servants told David those words, it pleased David well to become the king's son-in-law. Now the days had not expired. Therefore David arose and went, he and his men, and killed 200 men of the Philistines. And David brought their foreskins, and they gave them in full count to the king. Where did I read on the other part? Yeah. So he went and got double. He killed double. He's like, okay, I'm going to go do it. He gave him to the king that he might become the king's son-in-law. Then Saul gave him Michal as his daughter as a wife. Thus Saul saw and knew that the Lord was with David, and that Michal, Saul's daughter, loved him, and Saul was still more afraid of David. So Saul became David's enemy continually. Then the princes of the Philistines went out to war, and so it was, whenever they went out, that David behaved more wisely than all the servants of Saul, so that his name became highly esteemed. So he just kept, I would hate to have been the guy who had to count those things. Yeah, me too. I wouldn't have wanted to be part of that situation. But Saul was so jealous that he kept trying to get him killed. He just kept trying to get David killed. But that wasn't going to happen. That wasn't God's plan. We all know that God's plan is the main plan, is the one that we're going to... What did I do with my pen? Oh, there it is. God's plan is the one that's going to happen. It's the one that... God's plan always prevails. Is that the word? I'm not sure. Um, but his plan is the one that's going to happen, not anybody else's. So that's all of that chapter. So let's see. Let's do 19 and 20. Yeah, we'll do 19 and 20 next week. But Saul is so greedy and he's so, I mean, he's just so jealous of David that he is messing his own self up. He's the one that's causing himself so many issues that he can't even do what he needs to do. And David is still just doing what God says for him to do. He's still doing what he's supposed to be doing. He's out fighting the Lord's battles. He's out making sure that he is a good person. He is making sure that he is wise. And he knows who is on his side. He knows whose battle he is fighting, and he knows who's gonna win the war. So that's what we need to do as well. We need to know whose battle we're fighting. Whenever something comes against us, we need to know that that person or thing that is coming against us, it's not that person or thing. It is Satan coming at us, and we need to know that God is with us and he will fight with us or for us. And we just need to be wise. We don't need to give into it. We need to go ahead and just go through it, because that's what God wants us to do. And I know that every single one of us are fighting battles. I know there's something in every one of our lives that we have going on, whether we talk about it or not, that we are fighting that battle. And as long as we know who is on our side and we don't lose sight of that the way Saul did, we'll be okay. David went through and he fought all these Philistines, and he made it through because he knew who was with him. Saul forgot. Saul forgot, and he went crazy. He went insane. He had evil spirits haunting him and um, torturing him, and he used different human things to fix that. And I just feel like if Saul would have went back to God, if he would have seen who had carried him to the kingdom, then he wouldn't have been so lost. And I feel that's the same way with us. If we keep our eyes on God, if we keep our eyes in the Word, not necessarily this one, it can be whatever Bible you want. Like, it doesn't have to be a study Bible. It can be just a regular Bible. It doesn't have to be a New King James. It can be a King James. It can be a different version, whatever version you want. It doesn't have to be a large print. It can be a small one. It doesn't have to be in print. It can be on your phone. I have Bible apps on my phone. It's just, you got to stay in it. And if you miss a day, that's all right. You can go back and pick it up the next day. Don't give up. Don't quit. Just keep going. And I don't care if you read a chapter or if you read just a verse a day. It doesn't matter. Read something in the Bible every single day to keep yourself going. And Psalms and Proverbs are some of the greatest parts. I mean, Proverbs is a book of wisdom. You read that and you will be wiser. You will know how to go through life, even though it's talking about things that are from 1,000 years ago or more. Well, it's more than 1,000 years ago, but you know what I'm saying. It's talking about that time, several thousand years ago. It still applies to today. It's just you've got to figure out how it applies differently because we're more advanced. I really don't think we're more advanced. I think that some things like smartphones are making us stupider. But that's my opinion. It has nothing to do with the Bible study. But anyway, we'll be doing 19 and 20 next week, as far as I know. And actually next week is a special day. It's just, I'm not going to say it because she may not want me to. But anyway, it's a special day. But yeah, that does fall on Tuesday. Okay. So anyways, I guess that's all for today. remember the ones that I said in, that we talked about to pray for, and also Donna that just her friend and her son. Yeah, she said it, so I can say it. It's Flora's birthday. My sister. She's it's around 5 years older than me, and it's her birthday. There's nobody between us. Um, it was her, and I think that may be the longest between Mama's kids, except one more. There's two more of them are longer. Most of them are about 2 years apart. But anyway, I think that's all, and I think that Donna has getting pretty settled in her new house. I think she likes it. I think that it's a good thing that they have their own place now, and I think that's all. Um, Joanne, I did want to ask you about Namari. How is she? Her granddaughter, with her hearing. I didn't ask for a while about her, and I do want to ask now because I just looked back and wanted to ask anyway if you're still here. But so are y'all liking First Samuel as much as I am? I don't know if y'all know. She has to have hearing aids. Yeah, okay. I think that was the last thing you told me, that she had to have hearing aids. I just didn't know if there was anything new, if she had actually gotten them or how old she'd have to be. Have they thought about like the cochlear implant, or there's another one, another type of implant um, for babies? It's similar to cochlear, but not yet. Okay. All right. Well, keep everybody in prayer. Y'all have a good day. I hope that y'all are enjoying it as much as me, because I'm really enjoying going through the books. And I think I'm going to leave this book out because it actually it goes through each chapter and has little things. And I think that I should have already had it out. It even has like about Hannah and the scandal of Eli's sons. It's got little just tidbits that might or might not help me whenever I'm doing this, and might or might not help y'all. I don't know. There's not a lot, but it does have different things in here. I mean, it's just little snippets from each one. An Amazon link, or I'll try to find it on Amazon, and I will put it in the description once I find it. But yeah, I like that one. It's a Zondervan, and then this one is the one about the Holy Land. I like it too. It just talks about different places. But thank you guys for hanging out with me today. I will have a video tonight. I did forget to remind y'all, but I did put it on the community tab at like 1:00 in the morning. I forgot to remind y'all about it, but most of y'all remember. But anyway, I think that's all. Thank you for hanging out with me. Don't forget the video tonight. And remember, don't take any wooden nickels, and be sweet.